Competing in the 400 metres individual medley last night, Lewis had American Summer Sanders on one side and China's Li Lin with a white cap on the other. After several lead changes, Lewis finished strongly but missed out by just 1/100th of a second.
This is Moonan Flat, an area devastated by bushfires 2 days before Christmas. Several sheds were destroyed and homes were threatened. When the extent of the damage became clear, the Department of Agriculture contacted St Heliers Correctional Centre to ask for help on behalf of the farmers. That help came readily.
They were very keen to come out. I think from the information I have from Doug Matthews, our ASI, he tells me that there were more volunteers in the places we had to fill.
12 inmates will spend the next few weeks clearing away the scorched remains of fences and sheds, allowing property owners to get on with the task of rebuilding. But it isn't only the farmers who benefit from the exercise.
Gets them away from the institution. It lets them feel that they're doing something back for the community. It's giving something back, and it's a part of the program we're running at St Heliers to have people develop their life skills and their living skills so that when they are released, they're more competitive in the workforce and they're less likely to reoffend. And we believe that if, because of these sort of programs, we stop one person coming back from jail in every 100, then we've achieved something.
Ironically, 2 weeks before the fire, a Moonan Flat farmer donated a truck to the St Heliers Centre, which the inmates began converting into a bushfire vehicle. They will be trained in bush firefighting, and in just a few months these prisoners may be on the front line, protecting properties from the kind of damage they're now repairing. Alison Peters for NBN News. The Hunter Valley is a foot rot protected area, which means the disease is closely monitored and its transmission controlled by the Rural Lands Protection Board. 2 years ago it was relatively free of the disease. Now 23 farms around Scone are under quarantine.
People keep going off into the west and areas that aren't protected from foot rot and buying infected stock and bringing them home. As soon as they get here and get wet feet, then the foot rot sets in. And in as short a time as 3 or 4 weeks, instead of having one sheep in the flock with the foot rot, soon have 60% lame.
According to the Protection Board, the most effective way of wiping out the disease is slaughtering affected sheep. It's urging farmers to take advantage of the Wool Corporation's flock reduction scheme, which pays $1.80 for each sheep slaughtered. Abattoirs too will pay 50 cents per sheep.
I think the best way is for just ordinary sheep that are a bit long in the tooth, is to slaughter out and start again.
This flock has never had foot rot, but the farmer relies on the good management of nearby farms to ensure the area remains disease-free. It only takes a downed fence and a few stray sheep for the disease to spread, and no amount of planning on the part of the farmer can protect him from the mistakes of others.
People have all got on average of about 6 neighbours, and with the economic circumstances they've been in the last years, fencing is always a bit ropey, and you can always get leakage, and particularly with feral goats that go through fences like nobody's business, they can carry the foot rot from place to place. So if we can reduce the number of infected flocks, it makes everybody safer.
Regardless of the user pay system, the Water Board's more than 400,000 customers have hosed, showered, washed and sprinkled their way to a December daily usage record of 358 million litres of water. That's up 1 million litres on previous years and has mostly gone on to the garden. To put that into perspective, a watering can of around 10 litres will cost you about a cent. The Hunters reservoirs are 97% full, but the Water Board has noticed the marked increase in usage with the drying weather. Newcastle takes most of its water from the Grahamstown Dam. Newly installed pumps have been boosting supply to the city. The dam has served Newcastle for 30 years, but now projected population growth for the area has caused the Water Board to invest $1 million in upgrading the pumping capacity from the dam.
We now have 2 additional pumps, which just about doubles our capacity from this station.
The installation program should be complete by next month and cope with expected demands into the next quarter of a century.
Police say the driver of the Ford van, 27-year-old Judy Casares of Harbord, had no hope of avoiding the trailer, which careered into her path just after 6 o'clock last night. She was heading south on the highway when the trailer, fully laden with furniture, came away from the Pantech truck towing it. Miss Casares was killed instantly. Both she and her passenger, Graham Roxburgh, also 27 of Harbord, were trapped in the crumpled wreckage of their van as rescue teams worked desperately to free them. Mr. Roxburgh was taken to Manning Base Hospital with extensive cuts and bruising. He was released late this afternoon. The driver of the truck, a 32-year-old Cremorne man, was unharmed. Nebiac police are investigating the accident and say it's possible the tow bar connecting the trailer may have been faulty. Tests will be carried out, however they say it's highly unlikely the truck driver will be charged. The accident takes the state's road toll to 15.
The 2-minute mile is ready to be broken at Maitland Paceway with a hard fast track and a top field with paces from throughout New South Wales. They're here for the heats of the intercity pace, leading to the finals the following week.
It's the biggest event on the calendar in Maitland. It's the Miracle Mile of Maitland.
Last year's finals saw Twilight Time take the share of the $12,000 prize money and a place in Paceway history. Other winners have gone on to Inter-Dominion class. In the 70s, Intercity winner Bay Fail also won a Miracle Mile. Maitland Harness Racing Club Secretary Frank Norris says he expects some quick times in the heats, with even the top chances pushing for a finals berth.
Quite a few of the main chances have awkward barriers, so they'll have to make their move a long way from home, and that'll ensure that the pace is gone.
Secretary General left New York tonight. The hopes of the world went with him. With direct, Saddam Hussein took a very rare walk through the streets of his, asking for billions of additional dollars to pay for American forces in the Gulf. Despite Saddam's smiles, his people were obviously frightened by
Sailing ships to be going.
A cricket club.
MSB officers have been bowled over in a rush of people wanting to sit for boat licences and brush up on their safety skills before heading out on the water.
I'd rather find out in here than out there.
People are just more aware of the need to be safety conscious out there on the water.
Inspectors carried out hundreds of checks throughout the weekend, but most boat owners were carrying sufficient safety gear. The stepped-up public awareness campaign comes at a price, with increases in the cost of boating imposed by the Waterways Authority. While registration and mooring costs are becoming more of a load, the board argues the higher fees are justified.
I still think they get pretty good value for money.
In 1989, Cole said the Newcastle Falcons would make the NBL finals in 3 years. That year the side came second last. 1990, second last again. So 1991 is D-Day. Cole has a 9-match program leading up to an April 6 start to the competition. The players, new and old, are back into training after a month's break over Christmas. Falcons captain Al Green says the flurry of pre-season games is good for team unity.
Everybody has a different style of basketball, and some guys are more fancy, some guys are more straightforward, some guys are more physical. So I think we got to blend it all together as a team.
Point-scoring machine Everett is back with the regulars such as Turner and Harvey. But the Falcons this year have a new weapon, a double dose of 2-metre giants, Joins and Kruger, known affectionately as the Bruise Brothers.
Hey, they're both big. Believe me, Jason Joins is about 6'8", 6'9", and about 300 pounds, so he's very big.
Will they be doing any bruising this year?
Hey, I hope so. I'm going to be stirring them up too.
In 1953, a 25-year-old from Newcastle met a young Queen Elizabeth at the home of cricket, Lords. The English trip was the highlight of a slashing batsman's career, playing in 3 tests and averaging 40 runs on tour. This year, Jimmy DeCourty, now 64 years old, is still a cricket follower, but these one-dayer matches, well, they're not quite cricket.
I prefer a 5-day test match to a 1-day hit and giggle sort of thing, as they call it. And as I say, the players themselves call it silly cricket, but they still have to play it. Money for them.
Retired from the game for 33 years, Jimmy follows the sport from a regular stopover, the Ties Hill Social Club, listening to former teammate and now cricket commentator Richie Benno. But when the tests come to Sydney, he's on the train to the SCG, meeting old friends and reliving some green and gold memories.
We have a wonderful time. We get a lot of runs, and more than we ever got when we were playing. It's very enjoyable. We have a few drinks and not enough to eat possibly at times. It's sort of 5 weeks holiday of the year at the test match in Sydney.
For BHP hunter swimmer Donna Proctor, 1990 was a long and arduous year that had its fair share of pleasing results, and it started in Adelaide last January with a brilliant swim in the Commonwealth Games selection trials 400 metres individual medley. Donna's pet race, she blitzed the opposition to win comfortably and became an automatic selection for the Games in Auckland. Australia were expected to do well, and they certainly did, with Donna grabbing a bronze medal in the 400 IM. Taking off overseas for more competition, Donna won 4 gold medals at a World Cup meet in England, and on returning home picked up 3 gold at the New South Wales Winter Titles and a gold and silver medal at the Australian Championships. Robert Thompson seems to get better as the years roll on, and again in the 1990 season he staggered everyone except the people close to him by riding an incredible 153 winners around Australia, with many of those victories in the metropolitan area. Robert won the Newcastle Hunter and Central Coast Racing Association's Jockey Premiership for the 10th time, and on a lazy day in November at Broadmeadow, rode 6 winners from as many starts to equal a long-standing record. Robert also represented Australia at an international jockey series in Kuala Lumpur. Mark Sargent, in his second year with the Newcastle Knights, realised more dreams in one season than he could have wished for. The burly front rower helped the Knights to a superb finish in the Winfield Cup, where they just failed to make the final 5. He finished only 5 votes away from his second Rothmans medal after missing 5 games. But his crowning achievements came on the representative scene. Sarge played for New South Wales in the third State of Origin clash against Queensland at Lang Park, and then in September was chosen to tour England and France with the Australian Kangaroos, becoming the first Knights footballer to achieve such an honour. Mark went on to play 2 tests against the Poms and 2 against France, and was the leading point-scoring forward on tour. A reminder that the NBN St George Building Society Sports Star of the Year is on NBN this Saturday evening at 9:30.
While the Hunter operated as normal between Newcastle and Stockton today, a question mark hung over its new sister vessel, the Marinda II. The charter vessel slipped into Newcastle Harbour this morning, skippered by her previous owner, angering the Firemen's and Deckhands Union, which says its members were to have acted as crew. It was moored at 4 jacks, according to State Transit, for security reasons. As yet, no date has been set for a trial. Apart from acting as a backup vessel to the Hunter, State Transit says it may also be used for off-peak runs. But both the Firemen's and Deckhands Union and the Merchant Services Guild have refused to crew it on safety grounds. They and a Stockton residents group say it is too small and requires extensive modifications which are not financially viable.
We've been downgraded here. The ferry is totally unsuitable. It'll cause inconvenience. It'll be risky to the crew working. It is not big enough. There's only provision for 50 passengers out of the rain. Many trips from Newcastle, Stockton here have 150 passengers. I've checked them personally myself, and other people have done so.
State Transit says the Hunter and backup vessel the Shortland, built with a bicentennial grant, have been losing several $100,000 of taxpayers' money a year. Swapping the Shortland for a smaller vessel that can also be chartered is simply commercial good sense. Today, the Shortland remains moored at the ferry compound, a Union Black ban ensuring it cannot leave Newcastle Harbour, bound for its new destination, Sydney's Rose Bay run. State Transit says it does not know how or when it will be transferred to Sydney. Rebecca Skinner, NBN News.
The new season began with the promise of a higher profile orchestra, offering concert goers a subscription for this year's series.
We're indicating to the local community that we're here to stay. We've made a major commitment by deciding to present our first subscription series, which will be of 4 concerts here in Newcastle. We'll also be developing and raising our profile up the valley by presenting some concerts in Singleton, Scone, and negotiations are underway for Maitland. So we certainly want to make the Hunter part of our title be more relevant.
This is the first time an orchestra has made a commitment to ongoing appearances in the Upper Hunter. This is part of the concerted effort to establish the orchestra as the first full-time professional unit in a regional centre. By next year, it hopes to appoint a group of full-time musicians to be based in Newcastle, and by 1997, the city's bicentennial year, it will have its own resident orchestra, probably one of the best in the nation.
We feel we've got a very exciting year ahead of us, a very varied year, and we hope that the local community will enjoy it and come out and support us.
It's been just 5 months since Tomago Aluminium lodged a development application for a third potline. In that time, the company has passed a stringent public inquiry into the effects of the extension on the environment and has gained state government as well as broad community approval. The final decision on the extension rested with the 5 joint owners of the smelter, who today gave the green light. The expansion will increase Tomago's export revenue by around $800 million a year, making it one of the largest smelters in the world. An extra 1,500 jobs will be provided during construction, as well as 300 permanent positions. The expansion will also mean a significant increase in products shipped through the Port of Newcastle and an extra 840,000 tonnes of coal per year consumed by Elcom. According to State Development Minister John Hannaford, a major factor in the decision to expand was the signing of an agreement between the Electricity Commission and the smelter.
The cost of electricity was an important ingredient. Because the government has been able to make Elcom much more efficient, we were able to bring in for Tomago an electricity price which was competitive with anywhere else in the world.
Work on the third pot line will begin almost immediately and should be completed by 1993. But that may not be the end to Tomago's extensions. The company is also considering a further expansion which would see production increase by another 40,000 tonnes per year. A decision on that project will be made within the next 2 years. Jodie McKay for NBN News.
PV hasn't stopped baiting Cornet since their last encounter, a title fight, which was stopped in the 5th round when PV sustained a nasty head gash. To add insult to injury, Cornet withdrew from a scheduled rematch last year when he was sidelined with a hand injury, later diagnosed as an arthritic problem. Since then, PV has been claiming that Cornet has lost his desire to fight him. Not true, says Cornet, as he intends to prove in this grudge match. "1990 was a swan song year for likeable weightlifter Greg Hayman, and although he scaled down his competitive activities, it was still a fruitful season. After winning gold in Edinburgh and representing his country in the Seoul Olympics, Greg's one burning ambition was to again taste success, this time at the Commonwealth Games in Auckland. But the plucky lad from Stockton ran into some tough opposition and had to be content with 1 silver and 2 bronze medals, which in itself was an outstanding achievement. Back home, Greg set a swag of national and state country records, winning his weight division in both events. Guy Waters from Kulnura on the Central Coast faces his moment of truth in Adelaide tomorrow night against Dennis Andres, but to get to have a crack at the world title, he had to battle hard in 1990. Guy fought Yowie Davis and, trying to restructure his overall technique, struggled before hanging on to his Commonwealth light heavyweight crown. As the year progressed, so did the improvement in Guy's armoury, and in another defence of his crown, he belted Dave Fiddler to the canvas in devastating fashion. We wish him well in both contests tomorrow night. Merriweather teenager Rachel McQuillan continues to climb up the world tennis rankings, and in January last she made the final of the Australian Hardcourt Championships and followed that up with a stunning performance to make the round of 16 at the Australian Open titles in Melbourne, only losing to Katerina Malieva in 3 tough sets. Rachel's ranking, the highest of any Australian female, is currently 36, and she is sure to improve on that.
Shortly after 7 o'clock this morning, Israel time, Ted, we heard a series of explosions in downtown Tel Aviv, I would guess between 3 and 5, and these came shortly after the air raid siren sounded in Tel Aviv. And the belief here is that it was a missile attack. We have looked out on the roof with a big view over Tel Aviv and have not seen any indication of smoke or of any fires. However, we report again that we did hear a series of between 3 and 5 explosions very close to the ABC News Bureau building in downtown Tel Aviv. And we're making our way up now to the roof, and as soon as we can get a live line, we'll be reporting to you from there.